Welcome once again to Sac Taff. And I will be reading from my book, A Sacrifice of a Lifetime. This is the cover, the old cover. I'm going to update it soon. And normally I like to read from the manuscripts, but I haven't got those with me today. So I'm going to continue from last week because I know that, not last week, the week before, because last week I wasn't able to do this. And but the last time I shared with you about Rebecca, the main character, and how she had gone on more or less the final date with the gentleman. He wasn't. I wouldn't call him a gentleman, but the young man that she decided to go on a few dates with, and then the last one that she went on. I shared about that, but look at the previous video before, and you'll see what happened there if you haven't watched it. So basically, the gentleman's name is Sean, and he's a lot older than her. And, you know, she's only 15 and a half, and he's taken her to the wine bar, and, you know, and so on and so forth. And she's sort of, looking back at the situation, I'm trying to figure out, didn't he feel he needed to ask how old Rebecca was, but I know that, as you know, some teenage girls can look a lot older than what they are, so maybe he just assumed. So she's got to a point where they've become a little bit closer, and in the physical sense. And then the following week he basically confesses that he's married, and she's totally shocked by what he has to say, and disgusted with the fact that he is, and that he's chosen to take her out, and so on and so forth. And she just says she doesn't want anything to do with him. Enough is enough. You got to think about your wife. She mentions it's a gangster religion, and I thought here Sean found that quite amusing, probably because of the situation and everything like that. And so even looking back, because Rebecca Barracu is myself, and I'm sort of writing about something that happened as I was growing into a young woman. And if you've looked at all the other videos, you'll see I'll introduce Rebecca from when she's younger, and so on and so forth. So we're at her teenage years, and she's 15 and a half. And she's sort of saying, how do you feel your wife feels, and and he's sort of saying, well, a little bit of fun won't harm the situation. Maybe that's how some men think flippantly about marriage. Think very flippantly about marriage. It's a very selfish way of looking at it. Marriage, taking your marital vows, but not taking them seriously. And then you got your wife. He's got 2 children, and she's asked him how old his children are, and he's saying that 5 and 7, the boy's 7 and the girl's 5. And then looking back, I'm sort of thinking, he said at that time he was 25. So if he's got a boy of 7, so he had that child at 18. So what, he married young? I'm sort of looking back, sort of thinking he may have been an incy-wincy bit older, He may have been like 29, 30, I don't know. But he could have been not 18, deciding to marry, and you have a child, and then you have another. Wow, big responsibility for a young man, isn't it? So so Rebecca decided enough was enough. Sean said, hang on. Anyway, she says enough is enough, and you might as well go. I don't want to see you again. I don't want you ever coming back to this shop, and I don't want anything to do with you. Just go and stop messing people's lives around. And then Sean leaves without uttering another word, and Rebecca returns to her stock taking. And I've shared it before that what I'm noticing about the character, and I've only noticed it since I've actually been reading the book out with you, that when she's gone through something and she's not happy with it, and she couldn't see any fruit coming from it, nothing good's coming from it, she's just said, no, I'm not doing that again, that's enough. You know, I've noticed that. I've noticed that with the character, and you know, because every time I think of the book A Sacrifice of a Lifetime, I sort of think, oh, you know, I'm gonna have to share about the book. Oh, people are gonna start reading the book, and they're gonna sort of come out with their comments. Oh, you know, I'm not really seeing anything sort of inspirational about the character, but I do like the way that it's like she's just said, no, enough is enough. She's got a conviction. Enough is enough. To be honest, though, I feel as though even if he didn't come up and tell her this, it's good that he told her. I think it's good that he told her when he did, instead of let it. He could have let the situation drag on. I think eventually Rebecca would have ended it anyway. You know, he wasn't really someone that she really wanted to have a proper relationship with. She, you know, she was more or less experimenting, which is very dangerous. You know, it was like, nah, that's enough, right? You know, so it was really good that he told her at that time, for her to just have that conviction to say no. You know, just go. I don't want to see you again, and do not come back to the shop. And you know what? He listened to her. Never went back to the shop, because Rebecca's working in her father's shop. That's where she met him, and he never came back. He listened to her. You know, he never came back. Yeah. So basically, her first venture into the adult world had proved a disconcerting experience. But she was young enough to take it in her stride. She did not have a lot of time to think about herself before the new college term began. She felt more confident in herself than in the past, but at first had some difficulty in adjusting to a new teacher, a Scottish lady called Mrs. Mackay, who appeared to be a strict disciplinarian, and unnecessarily strict in Rebecca's opinion. Where am I now? Yeah. Her stern manner did not impress Rebecca, who glared at her with a rebellious expression on her face, making it perfectly clear that she was not afraid of her. Excuse me. Oh, just had a bit of a dry throat there. Yeah, so the following day, Mrs. Mackay softened and began to speak to her students in a more relaxed tone. Excuse me. Maybe, well, the reason why she was looking at Rebecca like that was maybe, you know, one of the teachers must have said, she must have looked at the history of Rebecca's life in the college and just looked at her and said, I'm not taking any nonsense from you, or, you know, I'm not afraid of you, and or something like that. So college life was beginning to get easier for Rebecca, who surprised everyone in her class, including the teachers. By her much improved work, her inner confidence enabled her to do justice to herself and became recognised as one of the top students. I remember that. I remember a quick turnaround. All of a sudden, I was putting more effort into my work. I was complimented a lot about my work, especially English literature. Yes, I remember that, and I remember a piece of my work being read out in front of the class, which was really, it was really encouraging. It really was. And I began to do a lot better in history. History was one of my favourite subjects, which I think I've shared before. And biology, I was doing really well in biology. Those are the three main subjects I remember doing well in, and also accountancy, because I just liked doing the books and the figures, you know. Yeah, so that was really good as one of the top students. Wow. Yeah, so so much so that her written essays were often read out to the class. Okay, that's even better, isn't it? Often read out. Excuse me, I'm just gonna make myself a little bit more comfortable. Yeah, so they're often read out by the to the class. So Mrs. Mackay, who taught English, was full of praise for Rebecca's work. Her history and biology teachers were also pleased with her. But her own great joy was accounts. Okay, yeah. She was in her element when playing around with figures, and she thought seriously about training to become an accountant. I remember that. And it's amazing. It's amazing how all these things go hand in hand, and we're not aware of it as we're growing up and developing, and we develop interest. Because now, obviously, now not obviously, but I'm an entrepreneur, and all of these things go hand in hand. You know, accounts, figures, the books, keeping your books up to date, all of these things. And English literature, history is really good. History is like an art. It's only recently I began to realise that history is like an art, and that's why you sometimes come across films that are in relation to history, you know, and they've just adapted it and added in an extra story and turned it into a film, which is really interesting because you can watch the film, be entertained, and then it might encourage you even to look into the history of whatever it is they're trying to portray in the film. What else? She was in her element when playing around with figures, and she thought seriously about training to become an accountant. Her fellow students could not understand how such a change had taken place in her. However, she did not question the matter too thoroughly, as she felt it probably followed from the fact that she was mentally growing up and was therefore able to use her initiative better. A direct result of her great confidence in her ability was her conscious decision to improve her behaviour and make up for her poor standard in the past. Although her time at college has improved, life was not all a bed of roses. There's still a problem there. There's still an underlying problem there. And but what I like about the character is that it's not all, you know, gloom and doom. There's moments where she does have an element of just being a lot happier, you know, and focusing on wanting to do well, wanting to make an improvement, not wanting to stay in the same rut as she was before. So she wants to progress, but there's still an underlying problem, you know, of her still not being happy, still not being content, and so on and so forth. She was too much a creature of moods, and there were days when she felt down. Much of her spare time at home was spent in the front room listening to music. She would sit in the armchair facing the wall and stare into space. Her melancholy was visible to family, but nothing much was said apart from an occasional moan from her brother or sister. Sometimes she thought about Sean. She could not discuss him with anybody else, but she could not quite get him out of her mind. One question occupied her thoughts. What would happen if she had conceived on the evening she lost her virginity? What would she have done? She pictured herself in a maternity dress, which for some reason she imagined was a check smock. Where would she live? She then visualised her father offering her the flat above the shop, which at present was unoccupied. And what would people have thought? She saw herself wheeling a baby along with not a care in the world, but would it really have been that easy? Although she asked herself all these questions, she knew she was not eligible to answer any of them. Excuse me just for a minute. Excuse me. That's better. I just felt I needed to do something. Yeah, that's better. Where are we now? Yeah, there was another scenario. She sometimes thought about the alternative. This, to be honest, reading this book, I'm really sort of looking back, because I have shared before, and I spoke about it before I started the video, that the book that I've written and things that I'm going to be talking about, I don't agree with the actions that I took, that Rebecca has taken. I don't agree with